everyone, and welcome back to Like and Hood Reads. This is my first video of 2023, so I'm here to say Happy New Year, and then I'm going to jump right into our January book tag, and that is JAN-uary Booktag, as in Jan Agaton over on her channel started this book tag last year, and I thought, you know, we definitely need a New Year tag, so let's keep it up. Without further ado, jumping right in. Number 1, what is the first and last book you read in 2022? So for me, that is going to be Children of Ruin, was the first book I read last year by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And then the last book I read last month in December was How to Excavate a Heart, which was a cute little new adult Christmas rom-com, queer. I believe it was a lesbian Jewish main character and maybe a bi-Jewish love interest. I can't remember if she was a lesbian or bi, but it was cute. I enjoyed it, and I'm just really excited about the kind of influx of these holiday queer rom-coms that we got last year. We're finally getting fed, and I love it. So, question number 2 is, what is your first read of 2023? So my first read of 2023 is actually a sort of leftover book from last year that I had been trying to read all throughout the holidays and was struggling with. That was Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett, and that is the second book in his Foundry Side trilogy. I really enjoyed Foundry Side earlier last year, and so I jumped right into the second one, and I found it to be a lot slower paced, so I ended up kind of reading it since maybe mid-November on and off. I don't get a lot of time to read books physically, just with my work schedule and everything. So that was part of what was taking so long. But another part was just that the book was going really slow for me. But I did manage to finish it just kind of like in the first week of January. So it ended up being my first read of 2023. Question number 3 is, share 3 of your reading goals for the new year. So for me, I couldn't really think of 3. My main reading goal for 2023 is to catch up on my TBR that I already own. So that's mostly physical books that I already own and haven't read, and a lot of ebooks that I own and haven't read. So I have this problem, and I think I'm probably not the only one, where I buy books on ebook because they're cheaper that way, obviously, and ebooks go on sale a lot more than physical books do, and definitely a lot more than audiobooks do. So books that are on my TBR will go on sale on ebook, and I'm like, that's only $2, $3, $4. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and buy that. But I don't really enjoy reading on ebook as much as I enjoy audiobook or physical. So those books kind of just end up sitting in my library for sometimes years without me having read them. And I never read them in another way because I'm like, oh, I already own that. So one of my biggest goals this year is just to catch up in general with all the books that I've already paid for and own. So I'm going to try to be spending less money on new books. Of course, there are some anticipated releases that I have to have, and I did buy a lot of books right here after Christmas, like I always do. So I'm going to be tacking on a New Year book haul to the end of this video as well. But yes, my main goal is to catch up on books I already own. And of course, like every year, I say I would like to use the library more. I live right down the street from a library now, and there's really just no excuse, but we'll see how it goes. I've disappointed myself 2 years in a row now. So, question number 4. Let's see, share 3 of your most anticipated releases for the new year. Now, of course, I did a New Year anticipated 2023 release video back in December. Yeah, like last month I did one. And it had a whole bunch of books on it, but I guess my most anticipated books are some that I already pre-ordered with my Christmas money. And that would be the first one is The Daughter of Izdihar, and that is a new debut queer Egyptian-inspired fantasy story, and I actually ended up, that's already out. It came out on January 10th, and I already picked it up. So, anticipated release, I haven't read it yet, but yes, that is a new release that I'm super excited for. Another one is, of course, going to be Samantha Shannon's follow-up prequel book to The Priory of the Orange Tree, and that is A Day of Fallen Night. That comes out on February 28th. I really had my heart set on the Broken Binding special edition of both The Priory of the Orange Tree and A Day of Fallen Night, but I was unable to get one. They sold out in minutes, I think the Broken Binding said it's the fastest they've ever had a special edition sell out. So me and a lot of other people were pretty disappointed about that. They also said they were going to be trying to get more copies of it, produce more copies. So we're still waiting on news for that. I may still end up being able to get those special editions, which are so, so gorgeous. But if I can't, of course, I will be getting A Day of Fallen Night some other way, any other way that I can. Because I'm thrilled about that. A Prior of the Orange Tree was a big part of what got me back into reading back around 2019, 2020. It just really inspired me to read epic fantasies because it's a huge book, and so it showed me like what I was capable of reading and what those sort of big epic fantasies were capable of giving to me, even in a standalone, which I still can consider The Prior of the Orange Tree a standalone because we're not getting those characters back, at least not in this prequel. So anyway, that's probably my most anticipated book of the year, and we get it right here kind of at the beginning, so I'm excited about that for sure. And number 3, I'll go ahead and say The Faithless. That is by C.L. Clarke. That's book 2 in the Unbroken, the book that came out in 2021, The Unbroken. I believe the name of the series is called Magic of the Lost, and this is book 2. It has a fabulous cover that they revealed a couple of months ago, and I loved The Unbroken. It's a epic military fantasy, and it's queer, it's sapphic, and it was just really fantastic. It had a lot to say about colonialism and cultural appropriation and just sort of these really morally gray characters and these really awful situations that they were put in, and I can't wait to see where the author goes with it. I think the series is only going to get more fantastical as we go forward because there was a lot of lore and world building stuff that were kind of hinted at in book 1 but didn't get to really be explored because of all the political military plot stuff that was going on. But I think we're going to dig more into that in book 2, and I've already pre-ordered that as well. Question number 5 is going to be, which goals did you reach or not reach last year? Yay! I love talking about my failures. Anyway, so a goal that I did reach was reading more science fiction and fantasy by authors of color, but also with, characters of color as well. I haven't, tallied up. I didn't do, a statistics video, so I don't really know exactly how many I read of this or that. But I did read some really fantastic science fiction and fantasy books last year that were by authors of color or that featured characters or main characters of color. So that's something I want to continue doing. That's probably going to be a goal, from here on out. I want to definitely give a spotlight to those books whenever possible and just kind of, see what those authors are saying. I've had some bad experiences. I've had some disappointing experiences with people like N.K. Jemisin. I didn't really connect with her Broken Earth trilogy, and I know that's a really unpopular opinion, but that's the first one that pops up when you talk about sci-fi by authors of color, and I didn't love it. So I gotta find something out there that I love, that I can rave about. As far as goals not reached last year, I actually didn't reach my reading goal, which was 90. I believe it was only 5 or 6 more than what I read in 2021, but I was unable to reach it this year. I didn't push myself. I didn't want to make the goal too big of a deal or put too much pressure on myself. I was mood reading for most of last year, just because I needed whatever I needed. I had a rough year last year, and so I didn't want to sweat it too much. I'm not too worried about it. Do I wish I'd reached my goal? Yes, but I was only 2 or 3 away. I think I read 88 books total, and 90 was my goal, so no biggie. I've set 90 as my goal again this year, and we'll just, see how it goes. And question number 6 is going to be, are there new releases this year you've heard of that you have no desire to read? And the answer is no, not really. I have a huge anticipated releases list, written down in my notebook, and I made that video. I've been watching other people's anticipated releases videos, but there was nothing in particular that jumped out at me that I was like, no, I'm not going to read that. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I remember last year there was stuff by Sarah J. Maas coming out or by Holly Black, and I just don't really enjoy that sort of fae romance stuff that they write. So I believe that was my answer to the question last year. I don't know if they're coming out with books this year. I haven't been paying attention. So the answer to the question is probably, but I don't know any off the top of my head. I guess I could say for that question that I'm going to be reading less YA-leaning books this year. Not because there's anything wrong with YA, just because last year and the year before too, lately when I've read YA, I've ended up just a little bit disappointed no matter how cool the premise is. Oh, hey. House sitting for my parents. Pet sitting for my parents. Say hi, Cookie. There, that's Cookie. So I'm definitely going to be buying less YA, and because I think I'm setting myself up for disappointment with those books where it's like, I'll like the premise, but the YA leaning tropes or tone as character stuff is just not working for me. And I don't want to set myself up for failure that way. I want to have a great reading year. I want to love the stuff I'm reading. I want as many 5 stars and 4 stars as possible. So I think I just need to aim more so for adult or new adult. That way I'm not putting out negative vibes into the world, not putting out negative reviews, and not ending up disappointed as much. Question number 7 is, what are some reading habits you want to change this year, if any? Let's see, so what I wrote down is that I've been relying a lot on audiobooks the past several years, just because it's a really convenient situation for me. I can read them in the car, of course, and then I can read them at work. I'm lucky enough to be able to listen to audiobooks at work, and that is great. And that is how I am able to read as many as I am able to read. However, since one of my goals this year is to focus on dwindling down my physical and ebook TBR, I need to focus on those more and stop relying so heavily on just what I can get on audiobook. Because there are a lot of books that I have really anticipated and that I've really wanted to read that I either own physically or own on ebook that I haven't read these last couple of years, and that's just because it's not as convenient as reading them on audiobook, and I need to prioritize that. So, question number 8, favorite bookish memory of last year. This question always catches me a little off guard because I don't really do bookish activities, if that makes sense. Like, I read books, and that's my bookish activity. But I'm kind of new to BookTube. I have a small channel. I don't do any, like, readathons or read-alongs or anything like that. So the best I could come up with was that I read The Oleander Sword by Tasha Shuri while I was on a camping trip with my family last year. And it was just a super chill weekend. I was, like, laid up in a hammock by a campfire reading, and I finished that book, which was my favorite book of last year, I think. It was a fantastic reading experience, and I just remember it very vividly and associate it with being sort of outdoors and with my family and just sort of chilling out, and, you know, that was great. So, let's see, question number 9, are there any adaptations that I'm excited about this year? This was a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Of course, I keep up with a lot of adaptations, but I couldn't really think of any off the top of my head that were coming out in 2023. It seemed like last year was full up with adaptations, things like House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, Kindred. But I had to look up some articles and like top 10 lists or whatever for adaptations in 2023, and I managed to find quite a few that I am actually looking forward to, even though they didn't immediately pop into my head. Let's see, so not bookish, but I am thrilled about The Last of Us TV show on HBO Max. This is, of course, based off a video game, but the main character, I'm going to call her the main character, one of the main characters, Ellie Williams, is a lesbian in the video games, and the second game centers around her and her relationships and her life. So that is being adapted by HBO Max. It actually just premiered this past Sunday, and I'm thrilled about it. That's definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most, but I'm trying to hold myself back and not get too hyped. Not technically bookish, but I had to include it here because it's the thing I'm most excited about. Also, I can go ahead and say Dune Dune Part 2. I have not read the Dune books, but technically it is an adaptation, and I did really like the first one. So, of course, I'm excited for the second one. That comes out really late this year, so it got a long wait, but I think it's going to be really good. Next is going to be Oppenheimer. Again, I don't know like if this is based off of a specific book, but it's based, of course, off of Oppenheimer, the guy from the Manhattan Project who helped create the atomic bomb. And it stars the guy from Peaky Blinders, whose name I can't remember, but I think it's going to be a really cool series. I'm interested to watch it. I don't know nearly enough about, like, the Manhattan Project and things like that, as I probably should. So I'm not really sure if we're right in calling that an adaptation, but I'm going to watch it, and I went ahead and wrote it down. So lastly, the only thing I could think of was Wolfpack, which is based off of a book, I guess, but I haven't read that book. But it's also a spinoff to Teen Wolf, the series from MTV, which is getting its own movie at the end of this month. And Wolfpack is premiering around the same time that that movie premieres. I don't really know what the deal is or how interconnected they are, but I'm going to watch that. And my understanding is that it is based off a book, so I thought I would mention it here. And lastly, what are some carryovers from last year that you still need to read this year? And the answer is a lot. Tons of books. I finished like the Foundry Side series, so I have one book left in that. I believe it's called Lachlan's. I recently purchased The Final Strife. I recently purchased Sweep of Stars, both of which came out last year that I was not able to get to, but I did buy them right after Christmas, so I want to get to those. Like, yeah, there are tons of books that are carrying over from last year. There are a few that I started last year and didn't finish, but not like put down forever. I can't remember the name of the third book in that Sarah Brewhauer series that I'm reading. I think it might be Night Terrors or Forged in Fire. That's a little queer urban fantasy book that I started in the summer, but I read like 3 of them in a row, so I got kind of burnt out in the middle of the third one and haven't finished it. So that's definitely one that, you know, I was in the middle of and stopped that I need to finish. But other than that, yeah, there are lots of books. That's going to be the Jan-uary Booktag for 2023. I'm going to segue right over into my New Year's book haul. I just want to let you guys know what books I got for Christmas, what books I ordered with my money from Christmas, and which books I pre-ordered that have not come out yet. Alright, so for Christmas, I finally got the entire trilogy of the Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne in physical copy. So I originally read these on audiobook, which is fantastic. Highly recommend the audiobook. But I finally got these in physical copy. I don't have them here because I'm house sitting, of course, is how it worked out. But I'm really glad to have these on my bookshelf because I love this series, and I can't wait to see where Brian Staveley takes it. This is the original trilogy, but he is continuing on, not with these same characters, but within the same world and with some of the characters that were featured in this trilogy. So there's miles to go, and I can't wait to see how it turns out. I also got the first 2 books in Django Wexler's Burning Blade and Silver Eye trilogy. I think it's just a trilogy, but the 3rd book comes out this year. I think it's the final book, but we'll see. Anyway, I finally got these 2. Again, I read these on audiobook and fell in love, and of course these covers are fantastic, so I wanted them on my shelf. What else did I get? I got The Legend of Korra, Patterns in Time, which is a little comic anthology that kind of puts together a bunch of mostly disconnected stories from the Legend of Korra universe and to do with Legend of Korra characters. They're just little vinaigrettes, kind of, and they put them all together in this really gorgeous little anthology comic. I already read it, but I got that for Christmas as well. I got a anthology of the very best of Caitlin R. Kieran, her short stories and short fiction. I love this cover. I am really interested in this author. She's a prolific trans horror, fantasy, kind of speculative fiction author that I've read a little bit from over the years, and I just want to know more about her. I know she's highly respected in the community, and that she is just sort of valued for being really different and really subversive. And especially with her short fiction, I think she wrote and published like over 200 short stories or something like that, some crazy number. So this is the newest like anthology collection of her short fiction, and I'm really excited to dive into it and kind of just learn more about her and her writing. I bought for myself after Christmas The Lord of the Sands of Time. I don't really know much about this book. I think the cover is fantastic, and I know that it had some sort of queer or genderqueer elements to it. I've just started it. I'm only like, 40 pages in. We'll see. But I think it's really cool, and it's pretty short. So I'm excited to, find out what it's about, see if it's any good, and let you guys know what I think. I also bought Fire Logic by Lori J. Marks. This is an older series, I believe, from like 2002, early 2000s, I'm not sure what year. It's supposed to have some queer elements, and it's got a sort of elemental magic system reminiscent of Avatar, which is something that I've never read in like a fiction book before. So I'm kind of excited to dive into that, even though I'm a little hesitant just because it's older. I think, it's worth giving a shot. It's a series it's got like 3 or 4 books in it, I think. This one was really hard to find. I had to order it online. None of the bookstores in my area had it, even the used bookstores, so we'll see how that goes. And like I mentioned a little earlier, I bought A Sweep of Stars and The Final Strife at the Barnes & Noble 50% off hardcover sale that they have after Christmas every year. These are the two I got with my Barnes & Noble gift card. They're both science fiction fantasy books by authors of color. I believe they're both black authors. And so I'm really excited to dive into both of these. I know The Final Strife was very anticipated last year, and I've heard some people really enjoyed it. It's got a gorgeous cover. The premise sounds amazing, and it is supposed to be queer, I believe, in some capacity. Sweep of Stars, I don't know if it has any queer elements, but it is a sort of diaspora story of the future of humanity in space, and how I think black people have colonized, I want to say, Mars in the future, and kind of left Earth behind as like this lost cause, and they've formed this very, I think, utopian-esque society on Mars that is sort of being encroached upon by the leftovers of Earth. Geopolitical science fiction epic, I guess. It was on my most anticipated releases video last year, but I wasn't able to get around to it because I was supposed to be buying fewer new releases. We're going to try it again this year. Okay, and beyond that, I'll let you know what I went ahead and pre-ordered. So these books are not out yet, but I did include them in my New Year book haul just because I spent my New Year money on them. So that would be The Daughters of Ijdahar, which is out. It came out on January 10th. I bought that straight away the day it came out. I pre-ordered Emperor of Ruin, which is the third book in the Burning Blade and Silver Eye series by Django Wexler. I pre-ordered The Faithless by C.L. Clarke, which I also mentioned earlier. That's going to be the sequel to The Unbroken. And so those are the three that I went ahead and pre-ordered, and of course I have to get my hands on A Day of Fallen Night. The only reason I haven't pre-ordered it yet is because I was really having my fingers crossed for that Broken Binding edition. I'm still hoping to get it if they can produce some more in the meantime, but we'll see. I may just have to end up with a normal edition, which is still gorgeous, of course, but you guys should go check out these Broken Binding editions because they have some really fantastic features that is definitely worth the money, and I would love to get my hands on them. This has been my January book tag with a New Year book haul attached to it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a great start to the year, and I will see you soon. Bye.